said, if you want to be really aggressive, I would suggest a 12-month chemotherapy, not the intense, not the sick, the 24-hour day stuff, but this couple of chemo pills and like a ongoing thing for 12 more months to really nail this thing down, make sure it doesn't come back. And I was like, let's go for it. So I really did 18 months of my body was wrecked, and the hair wouldn't grow, and I was hurting, but I was like, I'm not getting this thing.
Right. I don't want this coming back. Yeah, right.
So, it was, he's like, we can't even guarantee that this is, but if you really, I think he's like, it's really up to you. I mean, he gave me all the positives and the negatives, and I took some other stuff called Revlimid, which was a nasty drug. It used to be thalidomide that they did away with.
I remember that. It caused birth defects.
Yeah. So I was taking that and some other thing that was terrible. But during the 6-month period, I remember I would go through the 5 days of 24-hour chemo,
right.
And it would beat you up, and you'd come after that, you'd be pretty wiped out after the 5 days. But I'd be okay though. I'd be right. I'd come back from the hospital. I'd be off the steroids, so I'd come down a little bit. I'd be crashing when you finally wind down. I'd be ready for some sleep because I hadn't slept for 5 days, and I got beat up with the chemo.
Right.
But I needed to get back to work. I'd try to get a little rest. But the day after you leave, I had to go get this shot at the other doctor's office here in Annapolis. You have to wait until the chemo's done.
Right.
You go get this shot called Neulasta, which stimulates the bone marrow to produce white blood cells. And that thing was almost worse than the chemo. So you're tired as hell. You're sick from the chemo, and then you go get this other thing. And it's like getting hit by a train. So you're weak and sick, and then they beat the crap out of you. This thing, it made my bones ache from the inside, from the tips of my fingers to the tips of my toes. I was like, everything hurt. I was like, I can barely move, and I was like, this stuff is horrible. And they're like, well, it's stimulating the cancer of the immune system. You already have no immune system, and the chemo kills all the white blood cells. So it's like doubly, there's nothing in you, so they have to try to then, it's killed everything, and they're trying to rebuild it every time. Let's kill it down, right. And let's try to build it back up. Right. Kill it down, so and build it back again. Up. Yeah, so we can kill you again.
Right. Oh, God. Now, where in this process did the bracelets show up?
So it's funny, right away. Well, here's a cool story I've forgotten all about. When I got the diagnosis, we had the press conference, and they wanted me to start immediately on this intensive chemotherapy. They wanted to send me right to that weekend. That Friday, they wanted me to go. This was, I don't know, whatever day it was, but that week they wanted me to go to start the 5 days, and first time. I had a huge annual picnic planned with like 1,000, 2,000 people that Saturday. And I said to Rappaport, can't we just wait until Sunday or Monday to start? Because I got all my friends coming to this thing. I just had the press conference.
Right.
They want to be there.
They want to see you.
I want to be there for them.
Right.
So I can, hug my friends and let them know I'm going to be okay. And then I'll go to the hospital. They want to, be there. And he's like, no, we can't wait. You got to get in the hospital now. It's like, we can't waste a day. I was like, that's when I was like, this is serious. I go, what's a couple days? He goes, no, I'm telling you, you cannot go there. You have to get in the hospital. That was the first, it was like the shit just got real. It was like, it was the first time really where I was like, even after hearing all the other stuff,
right.
Even after pouring out the thing, after the press conference, after telling my wife, hearing the 3 doctors, when he said, no, you can't wait another day. That's when I said, this is really serious.
Yeah.
I can't see, I was like, come on, there's like all these people, it's just, what's a day? He was like, no, you can't wait. So they had this big event, and I'm not sure whose idea it was, or, somebody around here in our campaign, somebody said they're going to get these bracelets. The lime green is the color for lymphoma. Each of the cancers, pink is breast cancer, many of them. The lime green is, bright green is the lymphoma, and somebody printed these Hogan Strong bracelets, and they all had them at this thing. And all
so they appeared for the first time.
Yeah, they appeared at this thing, and they had a big thing, everybody signed Hogan Strong. And it was a monsoon at this picnic that their tents collapsed, and there was mudslides, but there was still 1,000 people there. And we had a videographer that was just capturing all these people, saying, we love you and we're praying for you. And so I'm in the hospital watching these people signing the thing and wearing the bracelets and telling me, it was just so, and I'm sitting there going, I got these chemo bags.
Do you know who dreamed that up? Who that was?
I don't.
Okay.
I can find out.
We'll
find out. Somebody, but it was pretty cool. And then, the story.
But they must have had to move pretty quickly.
I think they did. I think they did them like overnight or something.
Yeah.
But they were everywhere. Everybody was wearing. I don't know. They had thousands of them out there. And Christy asked for them, and he and his daughter Bridget wore them for 6 months.
Yeah.
The whole time until I called him and he said, "You got to come cut it off." He really did.
Now, as during this period, with your immune system suppressed the way it is, were you able to be out among people?
So it's a great question, and there was a constant fight with my doctors. So Aaron Rappaport, it's kind of hilarious. I'm, as you probably noticed already, I love people. It's what I thrive on. Mm-hmm. I shake a million hands. I hug people. I feed off of the energy of being out with the people. And I can't help myself, right? And people wanted to see me, and I wanted to see them. And so I would come out of the hospital. I'd be at work, and I would be continuing to go. First I went in, and they're like, you can't be with people. You can't be around people. I kept doing it anyway. And so I came back in the second time, like 10 days later, and the doctor's like, Governor, I couldn't help but notice, I saw on your Facebook page that you're shaking hundreds of hands. I told you can't shake hands with people. So I was like, yeah, but he's like, no, I'm serious. I was like, well, I'm using the hand sanitizer. He goes, that's not good enough. You don't have any immune system. You're going to get sick. So I started to learn it was hard because, everywhere you go, people reach.
Right.
It's a habit.
Right.
They reach your hand. I started to say, give them like an elbow bump, instead of a hand. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. And it was so difficult. I can't shake your hand. I can't shake your hand. And I was, doing it constantly, or hundreds of times a day. Everybody would try to shake your hand, and I can't shake their hand. So we did the one, which I think I told you on the phone. We did a cancer thing with kids at an Orioles game. And we took them out in the field. They were meeting the players and all their families, and they were meeting Orioles and take a picture with me and with the players. And I kept saying to every one of them, I'm sorry I can't shake your hand. I'm sorry I can't shake your hand. I'm sorry I can't just shake your hand. And Adam Jones, who's an outfielder for the Orioles, ran into the dugout and went into the locker room, and he came out with two batting gloves and brand new batting gloves. And he said, here, Governor, put these on, then you can shake hands. And so I put on the batting gloves, and I spent the whole afternoon shaking hands with the batting gloves. I was like, Doc, take a look at this. And I was shaking hands all over the stadium with my batting gloves on. And then later I did the same thing at a Ravens game. Again, I took a bunch of cancer kids down the field, and I got a wide receiver glove and was shaking hands. But those things are sticky. They're like, they really are. It was like you could catch a ball by just touching it almost. You could just go like this, and the ball was stick. It feels like a fly trap. It really does. It's unbelievable. And so I would shake people's hands. I was like, but it was the hardest thing was not being able to shake.
Yeah. What do you think it is that makes people feel that connection? I mean, what is it that is something that draws people to that? What do you think?
You know, I think in the campaign, it's a strange thing for me because I'd never really experienced it before until 2014.
Right.
I started out as this little guy, nobody paying attention to, a small business guy, nobody thought I could win, and a handful of people. It sort of grew. It was like the little engine that could almost. It was like we got a few more people and a few more people and a few more people showing up, and there was this. The state was way off track. I mean, the previous governor raised taxes 43 times in a row. We'd lost 8,000 businesses and 100,000 jobs, and people were really frustrated. We had one of the largest mass exoduses of taxpayers fleeing the state. They were just, enough is enough. We can't take it anymore. And this guy came out of nowhere, this little guy, who they saw, I think, as he's one of us. Mm-hmm. He's a regular guy who's one of us, who seems to care about us, and he's like working hard for us. And I think that was the initial connection. And I just seemed like a regular guy. People constantly say, "You seem like a regular guy." I go, "That's because I am a regular guy," And I go in, hang out with people, and I go to places. I try not to act like a politician. I don't want to be I don't want to see people to see me as a governor. I walk the boardwalk. I go to the fairs. I go to the parades and shake. I run back and forth. I never sit in a car. I run back and forth across the street and hug people and shake their hands. I go to ball games and meet with everybody and drink a beer with them and put my arms right. I take selfies all day long. But I think and then part of it is what we've done. So when the riots happened and I walked the streets and I hugged people who had their homes burned out in really tough neighborhoods, and they connected. They said, "This guy cares." He showed up. Mm-hmm. And then when I got the cancer thing, I think people related to that battle. They were like, they saw me in I think, I had so many people, almost everyone's been touched by this in some way. Either themselves or a spouse or a parent or a child or someone they love has gone through a cancer battle. And they were kind of rooting for me. They became on the same team with me, and I took them through the journey with me. They were like, even people who said, "I don't agree with him politically, I like the way he's fighting this." Uh-huh.
What about this theory that someone who is a governor is you think of as a powerful figure and someone of high profile, and well-known, having a disease, a life-threatening disease, is in many ways the ultimate vulnerability. Yeah. And we don't usually see powerful people being open about a vulnerability. Is that psychologically sound? I think that's a very valid point. And look, I think I've always been, from day one, way more open and direct and blunt, and what you see is what you get than almost anybody else in politics. And that's why they like me in the first place. But this was a particularly open and vulnerable point, I think they liked me already because they go, "He's not putting on airs at all. Right. There's no BS with this guy. That's the context.
There's no spin." Yeah. It's like people would say, "That guy just said exactly what he thinks." And they're like, "I like that guy." Right. Or, "I don't even agree with him, but the guy doesn't bullshit." Right. And then this was like, man, I opened up. Most politicians don't open up. Right. And so it's what they see. Like, people connect. Like, we have these little puppies, and I share the babies and the families. People feel like they get to know us. They see, there's not the phony veneer. They feel like they're part of our life. And and then the cancer thing, we brought them into that struggle, and I think people just said he goes through the same kind of things we have to go through.
The standard politician response to that would be to have the staff would put out a statement, and with a plea to please respect the privacy while the family.
Well, that's what most of them always say.
That would be the normal. That's the default position, right?
Well, so I had that. There was people internally that that was the advice, and I said, and I did it right away. I didn't even know what the prognosis was.
How severe it was.
Yeah. Right. And I said, I'm going to check into the hospital for 24-hour day chemotherapy. I don't want them reading about it in the paper. I'm going to tell them directly exactly what's going on. I want to be honest and truthful. So
and you couldn't hide
well,
it, right?
I mean, it already started to be. So I came back from the trip, the Asian trip. I had to miss a couple of important meetings because I was getting these tests.
Right.
So I think I had this Board of Public Works meeting, which is where we make all these big decisions, and I had to miss one of them, and I missed a couple of other things because I was like, you have to go do this test and this test and this thing, and so there was already speculation about the governor's sick and maybe he picked up something while he was in Asia. How come he canceled these things? Because I never missed anything, and I'm never late for anything, and I've never skipped anything for 4 years. So there was already people buzzing about what's wrong with the governor.
Right.
And so I was like, I don't want any stories or rumors about what's going on, and I don't want people to see me going to the hospital. I'm going to tell them exactly what's going on. And they're like, well, we should wait and find out. But, my staff didn't even really know everything, but I came in, I told my chief of staff, I told him, get the cabinet down here and round up our whole senior staff and call a press conference. And so I have a back room back here, which I'll show you. I brought the team in there, and I told them.
What did you say? How did you say
it? I said, just basically the same way I just told you earlier. I walked them through it. I said, how I found out, what the doctors have told me. I said we had the greatest team that we'd ever assembled. I had complete confidence in them, that I loved them, that I was going to rely on them more than ever, that I needed them, that I was going to fight this thing, that I was going to make it through, but I couldn't make it through without them. And they're all crying, every single one of them. Think about it, we just pulled off the biggest upset in history.
Right.
And we'd only been here for 150 days.
Right.
And I'm telling them I have advanced cancer.
Right.
They're like, what? And so they're all crying.
Right.
And they're all hugging me. And then I have to go give a press conference. And I had just got back getting drilled out of my hip. Right. And I don't even know yet if I have stage 4.
Right. And people, what do people say? Do they say, we're with you?
Oh,
what do they say?
They couldn't say much. I mean, they were like...
stunned.
I mean, it was a lot of, we love you, and a lot of hugs, and nobody could talk.
Right.
Nobody could talk.
Yes.
I mean, a couple people, afterwards, they grabbed me and are coming here or something, but it was stunned shock and silence.
Right.
And it was...
Now, were you, the downside of what the journey that you, to the approach that you took to this, is that you really are, I mean, you don't have any privacy in it. You don't have any really talk. Was there regret about that or no? It was sort of therapeutic in one way. I mean, sure. Look, here was the downside. I looked terrible. Uh-huh. I felt terrible. Right.
I'm not the most vain guy in the world, but I put on 40 pounds. I lost all my hair. My head swelled up. I was all discolored. I didn't have eyebrows or eyelashes.
Right.
I used to have a full head of hair. I was like, so I was taking a shower. The first time I went through chemo, it's not that bad.
Right.
I could take this. Second time, I was like, not so bad. Like the third week, I was shampooing my hair, and I was like, a whole handful of hair.
Wow.
And another whole handful. So I got these big holes in my head. And so I look like, what the hell? It just comes out. It's like the hair follicles, they just let go.
Right.
And so I got this crazy thing, and then I just shaved the rest of it because it looked so terrible.
Right.
And I came out of the shower. My wife almost fainted. She's like, oh my God, it's shocking. And then, but then it all fell out. I mean, this is a little too much information, but I lost every single hair on my body. And my eyelashes, which used to be long, still have not. It takes years and years to grow them. Yeah. So they're short. Yeah. My eyebrows used to be thick, and now they're very thin still.
They keep stuff out of your eyes too, right? Your lashes.
Right. I didn't have any idea.
They're like a filter, right?
I had no idea. I thought they were just for flirting, for winking. I was constantly, like dust falls down. Right. Like right here, there's dust particles constantly. Sure. Your eyelashes catch that stuff.
Right.
They just went straight in my eyes for years.
Constantly.
Yeah. I was like, I had no idea they had a function.
Yeah. No, that's it. Now, tell me about the discussion with your wife. So you get back that day from the hospital.
Yeah.
She, at this point, I mean, she knows that you've gone in to see these people and having these tests and stuff.
It didn't, not really.
No?
Because,
okay.
Because it was a shock to me and her.
Right.
So she knew I had this, I was shaving in Japan.
Right. And she's on this trip.
She's on the trip. And I was like, shaving. I was like,
what's this?
I was like, this is, I was just like, what the heck? There's like a golf ball sticking. It was literally a golf ball sticking out my neck. I mean, I said, hey, honey. I'm in the bathroom. She's in the hotel room. I said, come take a look at this. I go, look at this thing. She goes, what's that? I was like, I don't know. She says, does it hurt? I said, no, it doesn't hurt at all. She goes, you didn't have that yesterday. I was like, no, just overnight popped up. She's like, I said, feel it. She's like, I don't want to feel it. So I was like, she's like really hard. She's like, oh, you have to call a doctor. Right. You have to call a doctor. So I texted my Amanda here, and I said, set me up, doctor's appointment as soon as I get back. Dr. Riedman, my primary care physician. And so she knew I was going to the doctor.
Right.
She didn't think anything of it.
Right.
And that guy goes, I don't think it's anything. It's like fluid in there. It seems like for some reason it's a swollen gland, but it's nothing. It's just water.
But so she doesn't. As you
she knows nothing.
Each of these from the chest to the abdomen to the. She's not in.
No, knows nothing. So it's a shock, just like it was to me. So the first time it's like she knows there's a lump.
Right.
I go to the primary care physician. He says it's nothing. He sends me to a radiologist.
Right.
Who he just orders an ultrasound, not a CAT scan.
Right.
Even though he does CAT scans. So the guy does an ultrasound thing like you would do if you're pregnant, I guess. And he says, it's just fluid in a cyst. It's nothing. I don't know why it's there. It's like a cyst that's inflamed. I'm going to send you to an ear, nose, and throat guy. It's really good. You can check it out and see what's wrong. I go, okay. So we schedule an appointment like a couple days later.
Oh, okay.
Well, I go home and I said, yeah, they said it's nothing really. It's some kind of a thing. And she's like, well, why? I was like, I don't know why, but I'm going to see some specialist. Right. But they said it's nothing to worry about. That's how she.
So there's no alarm.
No alarm.
Yet. Right.
Not to me or her.
Right.
And I don't know what the time frame is, but a few days later, or I think maybe it was a Monday to a Friday, really, Monday or Tuesday to Friday. I'm thinking nothing. And then I go on Friday, and it's to the ear, nose, and throat guy. I was like, I got this thing. They said it was nothing, but it's like, and he's looking, and he thinks it's nothing.
Right.
He's like, he said it is some kind of cyst. There's like fluid in there. I'm not sure, but we'll take a look. I want to do a CAT scan. It turns out this thing was not cancer. And it was very strange, and nobody knows why it happened.
And do they think it was not connected?
Well, what they think it was a weird thing that the ear, nose, and throat guy had never seen before. The two oncologists had never seen before. It was like a warning light popping up on your dashboard, which saved my life and kept it from getting to my bones and made me go to get checked at the very last moment and start this whole journey. But they don't know why it happened. So apparently their theory is, and they had all kinds of experts come in. The whole time they couldn't figure out what it was. And it wouldn't go down. But it wasn't cancer. It was the only one that wasn't cancer. It was just a lymph node, one of the few in my entire body that didn't have cancer, that just filled with fluid. And I think it was because the whole lymph system was going crazy with white blood cells or whatever fighting the cancer, that this one healthy one filled with fluid going, hey, something's wrong. And it just was going, we don't know what to do. But that thing set off the alarms. Yeah. So, and it wouldn't go down. So I was like, we might have to we talked about operating, because that didn't react to the chemo. And it still had this big thing. And so they were talking about like cutting my throat and taking out this thing. But eventually, it was the last one to go down. All the real tumors, the cancer was shrinking, but this thing kept sticking out of my neck.
So on the day that the three doctors have the discussion, you ride back in the car with the trooper, you're listening to the McGraw song. It's not until then really that you have that conversation with you. I
go home and I sit down with her, and she's, Asian culture, they don't show emotions that much. She rarely cries. You know, in fact, she makes fun of me because I'm Irish and very emotional, and I cry at the drop of a hat.
Right.
On our wedding day, I was crying, and she's like, "Why are you crying?" You know. But this time she cried, and
what did you say? How did you? This is pretty serious.
I sat her down, and I said, honey, I have to, let's sit down here for a minute. I have to talk to you about something pretty serious, and which I don't have that kind of a conversation very often. I can't remember when I ever did.
Right. This is like in the kitchen, or where this is?
We sat down in that room we were in last night, a little man cave or TV room down in the basement, and she said, "Okay, what's wrong?" She was concerned right away because
Your tone is different.
Yeah, she knew something. She knew I just came back from the doctor, and when I said that, you could see a little panicked look on her face. And I said, I have some kind of scary news. These doctors, just told me that I have cancer. And she she blinked, and it was a shocked look on her face, and she said, "But they told you everything was okay," because it's earlier in the week. I said, "I know, but they didn't think I did, but they did more tests today." Mm-hmm. And then she started to cry. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't go into great detail, but I said, it's pretty serious, and I said it's spread a lot, and they think it's this thing called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She's like, what is it? What is it called? It's a little translation issue. Mm. And I said, they say it's pretty aggressive and it's pretty bad. She said, well, what does that mean? What does it mean? I said, well, we're not sure yet. I have to. They want me to meet with these other doctors, but it's pretty bad. But we're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You know me. I'm tough. I'm going to fight it. I love you, and I promise you we're going to get through this. We're going to pray. And she started crying, and I hug her, and she's like, she's very religious, and she's like, she actually says, God is going to get us through this. Mm-hmm. She said, God has a plan for you. You're not going to die.
She believed that, you think?
Just right away.
Yeah.
She said, "We're gonna heal you. You're gonna get better." And we hugged, and then I said, "We have to tell the girls." And they were coming for Father's Day weekend. This was Friday night. They were coming the next day, and I wanted to tell them in person. So I waited, and very unusual. We get all the girls together, but we did, and so I told them, and of course they all cried, and even and the girls aren't really even that emotional, and middle daughter Jamie, who's kind of a tough girl. She's a prosecutor, and kind of a softball player, and kind of a tomboy, and a baseball fan, and not a girly girl, and not a one that shows a lot of emotion. Mm-hmm. Just broke down in tears. Mm. Like a lot.
Right. And you did this together. You didn't do it one at a time. They were all together.
Yeah. And that was really hard. And that was the hardest part, really. Because I never cried, believe it or not. I wasn't even scared, really, at that point. Even though I heard this terrible stuff, it was the hardest part was seeing the impact it had on my family. And I knew, I was like, the first thing I thought about was, how am I going to tell my family? Yeah. And so I told them, but they were like, it was like group hug, all the girls and everybody, and, we love you, and it's just crying, and, I kept saying, guys, it's going to be okay, and I promise you, and they're like, we're going to, what can we do? And everybody feels a little helpless, well, how do we help? And and Jamie really took it on her. She was the one that usually the least emotion, showed the most emotion, and was there the whole time, showing up at the hospital. And then next day, my dad, who was I guess 85 or 84, 85 at the time, came over for Father's Day dinner, and my dad's a big guy, loves to eat, and he was excited to be there for Father's Day. And I told my dad one-on-one, and he just bawled like a baby. And he was so after. I'm going to back up and tell you some of my dad's stories to get to this point, which will be good stories too. But he was so proud that I had just gotten elected, and after his whole life, and proudest moment for him probably. And he didn't always. I mean, I never saw him like this before. He felt helpless. I'm an old guy. I was 59 years old, but he literally. He looked at me like I was his 10-year-old little boy. Yeah. And that he couldn't save or he couldn't help. He was helpless. And it wasn't like an older, father who I'm trying to take care of to a middle-aged or older guy. Mm-hmm. It was dad with his little boy. Right. And saying he might lose his little kid. Yeah. And he took it, as bad as my daughter Jamie took it, and he just couldn't. Everybody else was like, it was a sad Father's Day, but I was happy to be together with everybody, and everybody else ate. My dad wouldn't eat anything. I was like, Dad, you got to eat, and he's like, I can't eat, and then he would start crying again.
Do you, in a situation like that, do you feel like you've got to put forth a positive?
Yeah, I was.
You don't want to show your own anxiety?
I never showed any anxiety. I only shed tears because they were crying, and I was like hugging them and like saying it's going to be okay. I wasn't shedding tears.
Consoling them.
Yeah, I wasn't shedding tears for myself, and I was like, it's going to be okay, and they made me cry because they were. But I was trying to be strong for them and make them just like Governor Christie was talking about last night during the riots and stuff, where I was consoler in chief to the people in Baltimore, saying everything's going to be okay. I was telling my family everything's going to be okay, and I was telling my staff here everything's going to be okay, and I was reassuring the people of Maryland with my cancer situation everything's going to be okay, right? But a couple of good. Switch gears real quick to my dad's stories before I forget. So Christie comes in. He came in a couple times and met my dad. They hit it off. We really liked each other. Mutual admiration society. My dad liked how tough he was and how he talked to people. And he liked him, and Christie liked my dad a lot. And so Christie came in a couple days before the Sunday before the Tuesday. We did a big rally in Baltimore. We had 1,500 people show up, which was our biggest event of the campaign. Mm-hmm. All TV cameras, all Baltimore, Washington. We had 8 TV cameras there. And Christie gives him a rip-roaring speech. He had just flown in. He was doing stuff all around the country, and he first of all he's like goes after Martin O'Malley, and he gets everybody fired up. And then he says, if you guys go out there and work as hard as you can for the next 48 hours, that I promise you that. Larry Hogan is going to spend the next 4 years working hard for all of you, and the place goes wild. They're tearing it down. So while I'm talking after him, he's like introducing me. Christie tells this story later. I didn't even know the story. I never heard about it until I went to my first RGA meeting in Boca. And Christie tells this story in front of a room, all my fellow governors and first ladies and hundreds of other people, big donors. Christie tells this story. He said, he talks about, he went 300 stops around the country and he helped elect 26 governors. He goes, there's a lot of wonderful stories. He goes, but my favorite story is Larry Hogan went into Maryland, tells how he went out on the line, tells us the other stuff. Because my favorite moment of the story, of the campaign cycle was this, and he tells this story. He said he's on the stage, and I didn't know this, so I start crying at the thing with all my governors. He said, my dad, who was having trouble with his knees and his hips, and he's this time, he's an old guy. Christie was standing there as I'm talking, and he says he feels a tug on his jacket, my dad's sitting on a chair while Christie's standing in front of him, and he says, Mr. Congressman Hogan says, Governor, do you really think my son can win? And Christie says to him, sir, your son is going to be the next governor of Maryland. And Christie says, tears just streamed down his face. And he was just incredibly proud. 2 days before the election. And I didn't even know the story. So he's telling us in front of everybody, and everybody's getting all emotional. So my dad, who had tried to run for governor 40 years earlier when he did his impeachment vote and lost the primary because he came out against Nixon, even though he's 40 years later, 4 decades later, his son, who spent his whole life in business, came back and won the seat that he tried to get unsuccessfully. So on election night, we're watching returns come in. Christie's calling me every 5 minutes. How's it looking? How's it looking? I go, we're going to win. That's how it's looking. The guy just hadn't conceded yet. And he's like, I'm going to get a helicopter and fly down there. He was going wild. So my dad they're watching the returns. People are in the suite, we're ready to go down. And he's like, be quiet, I can't hear. His hearing's not too good. He's yelling at people because he's watching TV. So I said, Dad, I go, it may have taken us 40 years, but we're finally going to have a Larry Hogan in the governor's mansion. And again, the tears just rolled down my dad's face. And so he was at the inaugural, and he was the most proud he's ever been in his life. And I was just so thankful that he lived long enough to see me get there. But so then 150 days later, he's at the table, after having accomplished all that and seen me accomplish all that, and he's saying, I'm going to lose my son. So that's where the tears came from.
That's triumph and tragedy.
Yeah, it's the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, right?
Gosh.
I'm going to take a quick bathroom break here.
Yeah.
Do you want to get some water?
No, I might follow you in the bathroom. But...
Mm-hmm.